Brains. No, but seriously, what is up with the visuals in this show? I mean, I know it's a medical drama, but do we have to see a guy cut open in every episode? You know, skin folded back and everything? Maybe I just don't know enough about medical dramas, and I don't know how much this is pushing the envelope. But I remember watching House years ago, and there were times when I would have to look away, but I remember them being very few and far between. I guess there is a difference between, House's patients were alive, and he was trying to keep them that way, and Henry is examining people who are already dead, so it's going to be a little different, but seriously, they're not holding back at all. I mean, they arrest the guy who's been stealing the corpses, and then they go around back, and they see the gaping hole in the guy's head. Ugh. I guess that's one positive thing though, is that the show has good makeup artists and special effects people, so that's good. So we're diving right into the subject of immortality, and I like that. I like that a lot. The best scene in this whole episode was when Abe goes downstairs and Henry's working in the lab, and Henry says, "Oh, I've been studying all the times that I've died, and there's a pattern, and sometimes there's a delay when I wake up," and that starts Abe saying, telling him again, you can't waste your life away, trying to die, and it led into a very interesting conversation they had about immortality and the downsides and the good things about both aging and staying young forever, and both brought up very good points. And I guess I hate to say this, but it reminded me of Twilight. Do you remember the tagline for Twilight was, "When you live forever, what do you live for?" And it was just one of those things about the franchise that had potential, but then they took it absolutely nowhere. I remember Spoonie complaining about, I think it was in his review of Breaking Dawn, complaining about how the Volturi don't do anything. They just sit on these thrones all day. And I think that there's one time when we see them reading, but they don't do anything. Unlike even the Collins, they relive high school over and over, and that's all they do for hundreds of years. And Spoonie said, if he was that rich and lived forever, he'd see the world. He'd travel, he'd go anywhere, do whatever he wanted to do, get a medical degree, whatever. When time is not an issue, do whatever you want. And so at the end of the scene, Henry's saying, "What would you have me do?" And Abe just takes him by the shoulders and said, "If I had your condition, everything." And isn't that the thing? Isn't that why we are so afraid of death and why we try to postpone it? Because we're so afraid of dying before we can accomplish everything that we want to accomplish. So good stuff. And my favorite line in the episode was when Henry says, if you spend your life hiding from death or looking for it, have you ever really lived? I like that we get a little bit more of Henry's assistant, Lucas. This show is not very good about enforcing its characters' names, because I swear I can't remember anybody's names outside of Henry and Abe. I had to look them up, but so Lucas is the assistant. Got a little bit more of him, and it was nice to see, scenes of him interacting with Henry, and Henry's being kind of cold and not really, doesn't really want to hear about his day, doesn't want to talk to him, and you think, wow, that's a little harsh, but then interspersed with those scenes we get flashbacks to what looks like a previous assistant of Henry's, and again, driving the point home, Henry's tried to get close to people and he's lost every single one, so it's hard for him to get close to people again, but also we're reinforced the fact that Henry hasn't given up hope, and he does still have relationships in his life and is still making an effort to connect with people. There's they find out that James, Henry's past assistant, has tuberculosis, And Henry's trying desperately to save him. He's like, we'll find a cure, we'll find a treatment. And James just says, stop, please, just take me outside, I want to go outside. And they go outside, and James says, look at the city, Henry, just look at how beautiful it is, look how beautiful everything is. And Henry says, when you are mortal, sometimes you have to be reminded of beauty. And again, it was a nice reminder that Henry hasn't given up hope. He does still see the good in people. He does still see the beauty in the world. And I'm interested to see how this will contrast with the villain being as bitter and cynical as he has become. And then, of course, we end with Henry basically telling Jo, he's worried about her. She eats breakfast at her desk alone every morning before anybody gets there, and she has dinner alone after everybody else has left. And, basically saying, go out into the world, meet people and live your life and find someone you can spend time with. And she says, I found that person already. I don't think I'm ever going to find them again. And it's just a nice parallel that he's saying that to her at the same time that Abe is saying to him, you can't close yourself off from the world. You can't shut yourself in your basement and think about death all day. You've got to go out and just live your life. And again, we see that nice sort of shift in the relationship dynamics with Henry and Abe. Because at the beginning of the episode, Henry's talking about, he mentions Abe learning how to ride his bike and skinning his knees all the time. And then at the end of the episode, Abe is saying, one of the reasons he looked into the miracle drug, the immortality regimen, one of the reasons he looked into it is because he's worried about Henry and who's going to take care of him after Abe is gone, which is a very parental thing to think about. So their relationship has shifted completely from Henry being the parent to now Abe kind of being the parental figure, which is weird. It is weird. It's kind of weird. But they're not related by blood, which makes it a little less weird. And the tease for this show is just incredibly cruel, wasn't it? They said there's this miracle protein shake that keeps people young forever, but it's killing its patients. And then Henry goes up to Abe and says, your name was on the list, and you're like, oh no, did Abe take the shake? Is he gonna die? And then you actually watch the episode, and Abe says, I just went down there to question them. I wasn't gonna take that stuff. Are you crazy? And it's like, you tricked us all. Although the tease for next week looks pretty cool, doesn't it? We're getting a little bit more of Henry's past catching up to him, and now he's investigating the murder of someone he met when she was still young. And it looks like, again, it could be misleading, but it kind of looks like the way he solves it is he's going to use knowledge that he had of her when she was young. And that's gonna maybe get him into trouble. Again, I really hope they don't dance around this, they're obviously being something suspicious about Henry, but no one's gonna guess what it is forever. Forever. But again, I guess we'll just see where it goes. I was really surprised in this particular episode that they didn't make a bigger deal out of the whole brains thing. The secret ingredient is brains. And no zombie jokes, not a single zombie jokes. It's October. I'm really surprised they didn't make a bigger deal out of that. I mean, I guess it's kind of nice they didn't resort to the obvious jokes, but still, the obvious jokes are obvious for a reason. And I guess we didn't really meet a lot of the patients, so there wasn't that opportunity to have that, like, I've been drinking what? But again, it kind of surprised me that wasn't a bigger revelation. I think its character development could be a little stronger too. Like I said, I can't remember the names of any of these characters outside of Henry and Abe. And I do, the writing can be shaky at sometimes, like, they go to get information from this guy who runs Eterna. and they start asking him, they want to see the formula for the shake, and because it's a murder investigation, and he says, well, if that's the case, I'd really feel more comfortable if you had a warrant. And then they go and collect information just anyway. Henry bumps into that one patient, which is it was kind of clever that he saw the pickpocket routine earlier with the grape slushy, and then he decides to try the same thing to get information out of somebody else. That was cool, nice little play and payoff there. But and then the Detective Joe sneaks up to the guy's office and gets his fingerprints, and then they confront him at his party. I totally expected him to be like, well, but you didn't have a warrant, which I guess maybe what the things that they did get weren't maybe substantial enough for him to possibly sue them, but still, they still went looking after he explicitly told them not to. And I know this is a nitpick, but if the characters are gonna get information through illegal means, or at the very least questionable means, don't remind them right before they do that they really should have a warrant. And they did the same thing, in the first episode with the going in the greenhouse with all the plants. Although that guy ran out and he put his plan into action before he could really sue them. But so the writing can be a little shaky at times. But I'm still, I still like the Sherlock Holmes routine. I'm a sucker for that kind of dialogue, and I really like the guy who's playing Henry. I think there's potential for more interesting storytelling here. It's still a strong start for the show. If you saw it, please let me know what you thought of it, and I will see you next week. Take care.